Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. In today's episode, I am taking you along with me as I decorate a fairy garden tiered tray. I live in an area that having a fairy garden outside is not really the best option for me, but I still love the look, so I'm going to show you how I decorate one for my home. I hope that you guys enjoy this and that you're as in love with fairy gardens as I am. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. And if you do like anything that you see in today's video, remember to hit that thumbs up. But let's go make this tiered tray fairy garden. So I want to make this darling little house. I have an idea to make a cute little fairy house. So I'm just using some spackling. I've watered it down and I've let it dry in this little teeny pot here to give it some stability. This would actually be a perfect thing to use like a pool noodle for. You'll see why when I get into the project here. But I saw a little house at a store and I thought it was super cute. And I thought, I think I can come up with an idea to make that. So as you can see, I just traced a circle there. And for some reason, I decided to cut it out really large to begin with to try and see how big I want the roof. I'm trying to make just a little cone-shaped roof, and so I'm just trying it, and I immediately realized, like, yes, that is really too big. So I'm just going to cut it down closer to the original shape that I had traced. You know, it's always easier to start out bigger and go smaller rather than having to add paper on. So you know, it works. But I just cut this down into a circle, and you're just going to cut a slit up the middle of your circle, and that way you can kind of turn this into a three-dimensional cone shape here to get the shape of the roof. And I thought this would be a perfect shape for our little house here. And I just used some glue to glue that into that shape there. And now the best thing that I could come up with to get the shape that I wanted, because I wanted a very whimsical shape, was to use some aluminum foil. So I'm just wrapping this all around the cone shape, and you'll see how I do this here, that I leave quite a bit on the top because I'm going to make kind of like a little arch shape to this, and you'll kind of see as I do this how that works. Now, I love the idea of a fairy garden, and unfortunately I live in an area that it is not very practical for me to have one outside. We get a lot of wind and weather at our house, and I just really don't have like a specific flower bed or pot or anywhere to have a fairy garden. And so, but my kids love it too. I mean, we've seen some and they think they're so absolutely adorable. So I thought that I would try and do a tiered tray so they could still have that fun, whimsical touch of a fairy garden, but it would be inside and it's not going to get weathered, and I can just add to it as I want to. So as you can see here, it almost looks like a Hershey Kiss, I guess, at this point. And I'm just going to bend over and make just kind of this little like swoopy arch little twirly thing here, I guess. Kind of, you can kind of see how that's looking there, like a swan face, I guess, or something. But I just thought that would be a really cute shape for the roof to kind of give it almost like a Dr. Seuss type feel. Now I do just place that on top of my little pot to make sure that it looks good, and I kind of tighten up this little curl that I have here and just kind of make it come to a good point at the end there. Now I want the top of my little fairy hut here, my little fairy house, to be kind of a grassy, mossy feel. So this is just a sheet of Dollar Tree. This is that sheet moss that you can get. You only get one sheet in there. You know, it's $1.25 at Dollar Tree. I do end up getting some from Hobby Lobby that is thicker. You get a lot more. It's about $6, and it was a lot better quality, but that doesn't mean that this doesn't do its job. So just keep that in mind. Now, I had originally cut it in a circle thinking I'd be able to place the circle all the way around this little roof, but it didn't really stick the way that I wanted. So I kind of cut it into some pieces. And the great thing about this moss is you can kind of overlap it, and it just looks kind of like a natural feel. Like it doesn't look like you've got a bunch of, like it doesn't look choppy, I guess. Let's say that. And then I want to make sure that the moss goes all the way up my little spiral curlicue here. And so I'm just using hot glue. Now, whenever you're working with tin foil or aluminum foil and hot glue, you just want to know that that will radiate the heat, and it can get quite hot. So even hotter than normal when you're using a glue gun. So just be careful. Just know that that's something that does happen. Now I have, this is reindeer moss, and this also came from Dollar Tree. And I thought I would use it to cover the portions that I didn't have enough of the other grass for. And I know you might be thinking like, well, that's going to look silly because you're going to have this one type of moss on the end of your little curlicue and then the other type on the rest of the little roof. Well, just watch what I do, because I do kind of blend it all together and add moss all over the entire roof. So that way it looks just kind of like it was just a natural little hut left out, in fairyland that kind of just grew all this cute little moss and grass on it and just became this really natural looking house. Now, I love different types of fairy houses that I've seen at different nurseries. I know that Hobby Lobby has a very cute fairy garden section. I've seen Walmart carry some little fairy garden things. You'll see in just a minute, I'll show you some of the things I got at Dollar Tree to use for some fairy garden accessories. I had so much fun coming up with a way to decorate my tiered tray. Now, this is where I am taking the moss and I'm placing it all around the roof there in just different spots, just kind of sporadically tucking that in, so that way it looks like it's more of a natural fill and it kind of blends in that grass. So you can see this is a couple minutes later how it looks there. Very kind of a natural fill. And I just went ahead and glued that all the way around wherever I felt like it needed some. Don't ignore that little edge of the roof line there. And then I have this ribbon, came from Dollar Tree. I did buy this last spring, so I'm not sure if they're bringing it, or summer I think it was, so they may bring it back again, because last year was the first year I'd seen it, and usually at Dollar Tree you'll see things for a few years in a row. And I haven't had anything to use it on yet, but I thought it would be darling to use this so it looked like the base of the house, like my little pot that I put the spackling in, looked just like a little stump of birch wood. Now, this is where I was saying a pool noodle would be perfect to use for this. I just didn't think of that until I had glued this together and thought that would have been a great thing. A toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll or something. I mean, use your imagination, work with what you've got. I just had these little pots, and at first my idea was to leave it a little pot, but as I kept going I thought, no, it needs something a little more natural looking, and I really do love how this birch ribbon looks. And so I just carefully glue it around the top of my pot, and then even though my pot tapers to the bottom, I just leave the ribbon straight down so it does look like a traditional birch stump. And then just carefully go around and glue this and make sure that none of the glue seeps out or anything, and just kind of keep it so it looks just very natural. And I just close off the edge of this stump here with the glue there. And I just think this turns out so cute. I just love it. It really does just look like a little birch stump. That ribbon is so fun. And now I'm just putting a couple rings of glue around the top of my little planter here, the base of the house, so that way I can glue the roof line on. I will let you know that make sure when you stick this roof on that your seam and your ribbon is facing the direction you want it, like to the back, and your little curlicue on your house faces the right way. And then I just reinforce that with some glue as I go around. And now I want to make sure, in case you were to see the upside down of this little house, I don't want you to see that tinfoil or know that that's tinfoil that's there. So I'm just taking some reindeer moss and I cut it up really fine. And then as you saw, I put that glue there. I place my reindeer moss down, and I'm just using a skewer to kind of save my fingers from getting burned. And I just place that moss all the way around. And I do this, you can kind of shake it off as you go to get some excess, and I just go around the entire thing. You can kind of see where my hand is, the tapered part of the pot, how that ribbon comes down. Guys, when this sits on my tiered tray, you can't even tell that that's a tapered pot, so it works totally fine if that's something that you have. Now you're going to give this a little haircut, kind of clean it up, make sure that there's no hot glue strings or anything like that. You can see I kind of shake it to get it all cleaned up there, and just make this look as neat as you want, or you can leave it as rustic as you want. Now I'm just showing you here, I have a couple of houses that I did pick up. These came from Hobby Lobby. I do not believe that their fairy houses ever go on sale, but I felt like they were very reasonably priced. My local nursery that I recently went to, the houses were like $40, which these were, I think the most expensive one I got was maybe $8 or $9, maybe $12. I can't remember exactly. I can't see $7. So really, I think $8 is the most I paid for one of the houses. But as you saw, I just made one for pennies. So, I mean, you literally can make your own or do whatever. Now these I got at Dollar Tree in their fairy garden section. I loved the fact that they were kind of like a woodsy feel. They have some cute little mushrooms, little pathways, and I don't end up using all of these, but I'm just showing you here the different types that they have right now, and there were so many different ones to choose from. Now this is kind of like a little turnip house, I guess. It kind of looks like a little vegetable of some sort here, and I just thought it was absolutely darling and would be so cute. So I have these 3 houses, and then I have the one that I made, and I'm just gluing some Jenga blocks onto the bottom of them because my particular tiered tray, which I did get at Hobby Lobby, I get asked that a lot, it has an edge to it, so the houses, when they're in it, you would maybe miss like the first inch of them because of how recessed each layer of the tiered tray is. And so on my little teeny pieces there, I glued some of the little wood cube blocks that you get just at Dollar Tree, so that way everything would stand up and you'd be able to see it a little bit better. Now I'm just pulling everything out, and I'm just looking at it, kind of displaying like which layers I want which feel and which houses to go on. I love this darling little pathway, and the Jenga block glued perfectly onto that, so that way it can have a little bit of height so you can even see that. And you'll see what I do for the base of each of these tiered tray layers, so that way and you can kind of personalize it to your own way, but you'll be able to see what I do, and maybe that will work for you as well. So you can see here, even on like this little gate here, I'm just putting those little teeny squares on there, so that way it's going to pop up enough on each layer of my tiered tray, so that way you can see everything, because it's also darling. You don't want to miss anything. Now the fun part of doing a tiered tray was being able to kind of tell a story with each layer of the tiered tray. I love to tell stories with my crafts when I'm doing just normal DIYs. I think you guys have seen me do that before. So it was kind of fun coming up with a story for each layer of this tiered tray of what type of fairy lived there, what their story was, what their hobbies were, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was really fun. And honestly, as I was building this, all 3 of my kids, which my kids range from like 7 to 14, all of them came downstairs at different times as I was making this, and was like, they were enthralled with looking at it. I mean, kids just love to look at these little fairy gardens and all of the little intricate details. And for some reason, the little itty bitty mini size really makes it so much fun. Now you can see I have this little cube. This is just from one of those drawers at Dollar Tree. The edge on it had broken off, or I had taken it off to use something. So it was perfect for this project. But I thought it would be fun to have to add another layer onto my base of my tiered tray. And I'll kind of show you the process I do with this. I do end up changing it from how I originally do it here, but I thought I would walk you through the process so you could kind of see it in case it's something that you wanted to try or do. And it's just this little barn on here and its little rooster. I thought that would be cute. And I just kind of tore a piece of the packaging off here and glued it on, because I wanted there to be kind of like a little hill going up to the barn, kind of like this little fairy has this little pasture in Hillside that they've got their chickens with or something. So I'm just cutting up some reindeer moss here, and I will just use some, and I cut it up really, really fine. And I love to use this in all sorts of projects. So just keep in mind that you can do this. I just placed some hot glue on this little packaging here, and then I just kind of rolled a skewer down it to kind of spread that glue, and then I just lightly put in the moss there to kind of get it all over. And I do this over the entire packaging. You can see here I go on to the next layer, and I'll even do it all over all of the wood pieces around the barn, so that way it's completely covered in the moss. And when you place it on my tiered tray, it does look just kind of like this cute little hillside. I do ultimately change this, and I'll show you that in just a minute, but I just wanted to leave this in so you could see how you could do different layers on your tray and kind of make it look fun and just have a lot of fun with different things. Now this is the sheet of moss that I bought at Hobby Lobby. You'll see it is quite large, and it does have a much thicker layer of moss on it. And in order to cut pieces big enough to fit on my tiered tray, I did need to get ones this size. You could probably use a couple sheets of Dollar Tree that are pieced together, which could be totally fine. So just keep that in mind as you're doing this. This is just to give you an idea of how I did it. So each of my layers of my tiered tray are going to be covered in this grass. That was the easiest way that I could think of to do it. And honestly, I felt like I could use it from year to year or season to season or something and have this grass and be able to change it in and out, or even just lift everything up really easily. So once I decide where I want to place everything, I just cut a little slit in there so that way I can feed through the little bricks, like the little tumbling tower blocks or the little teeny square cubes that I had. And you can see once I decided where I wanted my house, I'll cut a little piece large enough out that my tumbling tower block will fit right through the base of that. So that way you'll be able to have the grass be there, and it will help secure your houses and the little accessories. So that way, because sometimes a tiered tray maybe is not the most secure thing. If somebody were to bump into it or something, you definitely don't want any of these falling down. And so you can see this is not an exact science here. It was just the easiest way that I could come up with to get these sitting flat but having them be secure. I also thought I would do some of them like this. So on the bottom cube there, I'm just putting some hot glue and just little pieces of the grass that are left over from that I trimmed off to make my circles. This way I could have them sit on top of the grass rather than having some of them be fed through to the bottom. You'll be able to see kind of what I'm talking about as I go on here and as I put the tray together. But I'm just covering them with grass so that way when they're placed on my layers, it just looks like little shrubs that are growing around these. And that way it gives them still the height from the block that you'll be able to see them, but it all blends in together for a cohesive look here. So I'm just showing you how those look when they're all done there. So now I'm just cutting some more pieces here of my grass, and this is going to be for my next layer on my tray. This particular piece, I didn't have one that was quite large enough to do this layer, so you can kind of see that I did have to piece a couple pieces together to kind of get it to fit on my layer there. It ends up looking totally fine in the tray, so you can, like I mentioned earlier, that you could use a couple of the Dollar Tree sheets. I think you'd be totally fine to do that in layer because you really can't even tell that I've done this in there. So now you can kind of see that I'm having a little bit of a trouble keeping everything standing up when it's not in the tray, but once it's in my tray, it's totally secure. So now to do my last layer, it was roughly the size of this plate, so I just traced a plate out and then cut this circle so I had a better shaped circle. The others I kind of eyeballed, and then by the time I got to my last layer, I felt like I was a pro. Not really, that's a total joke, but but I felt like I did know a little bit more about what I wanted. So I cut a slit with a little bit of a circle to fit around the center part of my tiered tray because it's got that rod that goes up through it. And here's our cute little house that we made with the little birch stump. You guys, I love this little house. It's so cute. Now, do you guys like to do fairy gardens with fairies in them, or do you like to do them where they're kind of like a mystery of what kind of fairy lives there? Leave it up to the imagination. I didn't do any characters or fairies in my garden. I kind of wanted it to be more like leave it up to the imagination of what kind of fairy lives there, or you're setting up for a fairy to come choose to live there. I'm kind of new to this whole fairy garden thing, but I'm learning so many different things and I'm loving it. If you guys do like this, let me know down in the comments because I would love to create more fairy garden ideas for you. If you like this at all, please let me know because I have a lot of different ideas that I would love to share with you. So here I'm just placing, cutting the little holes so that way I can feed my little houses through for this bottom layer here. And we're almost done to start assembling everything together on the tiered tray. Now this is when I decided I did not love the little hillside that I had made, and it just didn't fit with the way that everything was placed together. So instead, around the entire block, I just used some scrap pieces of the grass sheets that I have to kind of give it, so it still looks like a hillside. It's still kind of an extra layer with the cute little chicken and the little barn there, but it just doesn't have like that hillside ramp. So again, I just left that in there to show you some different ideas and that it doesn't take a whole lot to make other cute little elements. And then I'm deciding on some of these to wrap around some more of the strips here because I did like the way that that looked on that. I love this little beehive. I think this little beehive is so stinking cute. But I wanted it to be really visible and not get hidden by being tucked under the grass. And so again, this just kind of helps it look like a little bush, I guess, that's growing right around these little stumps here. I'm just quickly showing you some different accessories that I found. You can see how reasonably priced some of these accessories are. I do want to mention one section that you need to definitely check out at your local craft store if you plan on doing just regular tiered tray decor or especially a fairy garden is the dollhouse section. You know those big beautiful doll houses that people love to decorate the different rooms? Well, your craft store has a whole section dedicated to those doll houses and all of their different furniture and accessories, and they are absolutely amazing, and they have the cutest little like outdoor decor items for the little houses, and they're just the right size for a fairy garden. This little fence panel I'm putting in, that is where I picked that up at. And I'm just making a cute little pathway to this little house out of some stones, just placing it down on my grass to give it that natural little pathway. And I think this about calls it done. So let's have a look at everything together and see how it turned out. I am absolutely in love with how this turned out. What do you guys think? I just think this is adorable. That cute little house that I made with the little birch stump there and the moss roof. I love how that turned out. I love each layer tells a little different story. You can just kind of imagine the different fairy or fairies that live in each layer. And my kids were so in love with looking at this. I mean, they spent so much time, just all the little layers, all the cute little houses. I would love to know if this is something that you guys love. Do you like the fairy garden ideas? Because I will definitely come up with some more fun ideas for you. I love the fact that this can be stored inside. It's not going to get broken, or the weather or the elements are not going to get to it, that I can have it in my house and have it protected. Thank you so much for joining me and watching me decorate this fairy garden tiered tray. I hope that you had as much fun as I did. It was so much fun telling the different stories on each of these layers, and I absolutely loved coming up with all of these ideas. You guys, thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Happy crafting!
If you liked the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.